Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge. Welcome back, my friends, and welcome to Season 2 of the Pilates Lounge podcast. Who would have thought that we would have survived an entire year of listening to a podcast about Pilates? But here we are again. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's Katie Crane and I am the Pilates professional. Now listen up. This season, we are going beyond the choreography. Whether or not you realize it and whether or not you are teaching a mat class, reformer classes, or serving people with clinical Pilates, you, my friend, are in business. And in this world of Pilates, owning your expertise is as important as perfecting your repertoire. My name's Katie Crane. I am your host, and I've got over 20 years of experience as a Pilates professional, owning a studio, running retreats, running teacher training, and of course, enjoying my time with you online. I truly have figured out how to build my lifestyle with the work that I absolutely adore doing, which is why we're going to be talking all about you building your following, growing your confidence as an instructor, and how to get yourself seen. I'm going to explore with you how our industry is evolving, the trends shaping our work, and how you can stay ahead of the curve as a Pilates pro. It's really all about equipping you with the tools not just to survive, but to truly thrive and to really love what you're doing with longevity. So whether that means that art of mastering connection, attracting the right clients, or elevating your presence in the Pilates community, I've got you covered. So my friend, grab your coffee or even jump on a machine while you listen to this episode and let's get into it. This is the Pilates Lounge and I am here to help you step into the spotlight with strength, passion, and of course, a little bit of quirky fun. Let's get into this. Hi everyone, my name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional. Welcome to another episode of the Pilates Lounge podcast. Now, I'm trialing something today you may or may not realize, and that's cool. I'm actually doing my very first live recording, which is on YouTube. So I'm going to start playing around with this just when I do episodes solo, when it's just me speaking to you. And I'm just going to kind of play around and figure out whether or not this is something that my audience wants. So first of all, if you check out the live, which obviously once it's gone live on YouTube, then the recording will end up being there for you to watch. If you enjoy watching things rather than just listening to them, then by all means, check out my YouTube channel. You will find me. I'll chuck it in the show notes for you because I'm hopeless at knowing how to tell you. Oh, no, here it is. So you will see me on youtube.com/@the-Pilates-professional. You can find me on YouTube. But as usual with everything, you will be able to find this on the show notes as well if you want to go check it out. But on the other hand, if you're like me, I don't watch much on YouTube. And if I do have a look on YouTube, I generally will have my laptop open and just be playing the audio in the background anyway. I'm like, if I'm going to be looking at a screen, I'm either doing it for work or I'm doing it for pleasure and I'm watching a movie or something with my family. But I actually don't really understand the whole deal of putting something on YouTube and watching it. But I know that people do because I know that YouTube is massive, which is why I'm kind of giving this a go. Anyway, let me know what you think. All right. So today's topic is, and if you're listening on the Pilates Lounge podcast audio only on your phone or whatever, then you are listening to this in January 2025. So first of all, I would like to wish you the very best for this year. I hope that you have set your intentions for the year, and I hope that you are moving into 2025 with clarity, with confidence, and with a solid foundation of what it is that you want to achieve for the year, both professionally and personally. I'm big on making plans, on setting goals, on making shit happen. So I really encourage everybody to do the same, because I believe that it makes a huge difference if we live with intention. But today's episode is actually being recorded on the 19th of December, 2024. So we're stepping back in time if you're listening to the audio only recording. But if you're on the live, hey, how you doing? But either way, whether or not you are checking this out at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, this topic is super relevant to all of us. It's a topic that I am both passionate about, but it also does my head in, because I feel like for a long time, I resisted things like social media, YouTube, making videos, going online, all of those things. I really resisted that, because I feel like the magic happens for my clients when we spend time together. And that will always be the case for me personally. The magic happens when I can get my eyeballs on an individual, when I can actually feel their energy when they walk in the room, when we can have a conversation on the day, regardless of what their initial goals were when they rocked up at the studio. I want to know, where is that person right here, right now? And I'm going to serve that person today. That's my source. That's my magic. But although I have very much resisted getting online and going with the flow of the online space, which I realize is super powerful, and it allows for us to reach more people than our immediate community. I think that if we don't step into this space with great intention and with a very good understanding of what it really is all about from a body professional's perspective. So I'm speaking to you as a Pilates professional, because when we work with people in Pilates, we are working with their entirety, with their entire experience in their world today, right now, and the past. People bring their past with them when they come into the studio. And we are working with them to improve their future, right? Through movement. But for us to really be able to do that and to really be able to make an impact on people's lives, we need to have a very good understanding of the environment in which we live. And the environment that we live in now is digital, whether we like it or not. So if you're old school like me, you don't like it so much. If you are new school, like born from the 90s onwards, you don't know any different. My son doesn't know any different. He is I never know what to call them. You know, like what generation I'm in, I don't know. I don't really care. But my son is born in like 2009. He was born into the digital age. And as a family, we have protected him fiercely from the digital age. But now that he is a teenager, it's very hard for us to protect him. But I know, as a very intelligent human being and as an independent thinker, if you haven't realized that about me yet, I do not do groupthink. I'm very aware of groupthink, like when everybody's kind of doing the same thing. I'm an observer of groupthink, but I don't participate in groupthink. It's just not the way that I'm made up. I actually am fascinated by the groupthink. And what I mean by groupthink is, well, everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it too. That idea completely fascinates me. And I know as an individual, as a business owner, as a Pilates professional, that the group mentality, the group think can be very powerful, and people can ride on the coattails of group think, or people can get to a certain point in their lives through group think. But group think, in the end, for a lot of us, for a lot of people who follow the group think kind of protocol, it's going to drown you. It's like you're swimming in a sea of billions of people all doing the same thing. So you're never going to stand out. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, good luck trying to get to wherever it is that you want to be and both stand out, so be unique and be recognized, but also be truly happy. So in my world, in my mind, group think people are like the big people that work, people who often work for big corporations or work for government. Like government is all about group think. You're not allowed to think independently. If you work for a government agent or if you work within government, you're either not going to last long or you're not going to get very far if you think independently. I know this because I did work for a government organization. I worked for a council and ran a swimming pool for like 15 years. And I would never, ever, you could not pay me enough to go back to a government job. It is soul crushing, soul destroying. So while as a Pilates professional, you may have chosen the harder road, believe me, this is the better road. So where I'm going to with this about the whole group think is with the social media thing, with the phone thing. Well, everybody else is doing it, so I'm just going to do it as well. Where I live, we catch a ferry to go to the main city. And when my son was growing up, and he's still like a teenager, but when he was much younger, he was the only kid under the age of 13 on the ferry who didn't have either an iPad or a phone. And it's only a 15-minute ferry ride, and I get it. It's easy to give your child a phone so that they can stay quiet, so that everybody around them doesn't get bothered. It's great at suppressing people. So my son would either have a book or a Kindle. We always just, since he was very young, he had his own Kindle. We travel a lot. I read. And I'm like, just read. If you need something to do, open your Kindle and use it. And I'll never forget one of the parents coming up to me one day on the ferry and actually saying, you know what, I recognize that your son is the only child on this boat who gets on the ferry every day and reads his book. Every other child is on a phone, on a screen. I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I had realized it as well, but we just don't enter into the group think. We don't do what everybody else does. You know what? What everybody else is doing ain't working, which is why we have a healthcare system that is completely broken. 70% of the population have diabetes, and apparently another 10 to 20% of the people who don't have diabetes don't realize that they're on the cusp of having diabetes right now. So the group mentality of following the science, let's say, for listening to the experts in inverted commas, big red inverted commas, it's not working. The information that is being shared in group arenas like schools, universities, kindergartens, childcare centres, big workplaces, and this is where I get to these government organizations, they're big workplaces, that's not working. We have more people with more insidious diseases today than what we've ever known in the history of medical science. So if we know so much about health, why is it that so many people are suffering? It's because they're all doing the same thing. It's because they're all just doing the same, like I said, I'm saying it again, they're all doing the same thing. So if you want to stand out in the crowd, no matter what it is, don't do what everybody else is doing. It's pretty simple. You know, I'm a reader, right? You guys know that about me. I love learning. I'm like, give me more information. I've stopped going to Google for my information. I don't know if you have realized, but if you Google something, it's all the same stuff that's up there now. It's actually very difficult to get factual and real life information, even on the internet. And good old Bill Gates himself actually said that he wants to create an AI system that scours the internet for misinformation. Well, that's just fascinating, Bill, because who decides what is true and what is not? Who decides the facts? Because we all know that the healthcare system ain't working. The information that we're being told about our health, like, remember it used to be the food triangle or the pyramid, and now I think it's a circle. Well, that's causing more diabetes than ever in the history of the world. So the tick of good health that you can get on your food at the big supermarkets is not necessarily healthy. Remember there was like the Heart Smart stuff? Well, that's not good for your heart, because apart from diabetes, heart disease is like one of the next biggest killers. So if you're eating all the heart tick stuff, it ain't saving you. So we should be very alarmed that there are people in the world, billionaires in the world, that actually want to suppress information online. So what will happen, and it's the same, there's this whole misinformation, disinformation bill that didn't get passed in Australia, but I don't know whether or not you realized that the not letting children on social media, on TikTok, before the age of 16, it's actually not up to the government to parent our children. It's actually up to parents to parent their children. And I know it's easier if we just hand it over to somebody that doesn't know our family. It's so much easier if we don't have to deal with the tantrums of children not being allowed on social media. It's so much easier if we don't have to give our child a Kindle instead of a phone on the ferry when everybody else has got the phone. And now all of a sudden your child gives you the look of hate because you were the parent who gave them the book instead of the phone. It's so much easier not to be that person and just hand over that control to an institution who cares nothing for your family's health. We should have realized this by now. So it's up to us as parents, as individuals, as healthcare providers, as Pilates professionals to digitally detox ourselves and teach our clients, our children, our friends, our communities the benefits of digital detox in an online world. Believe me, it's not the easiest path, but hey, neither is Pilates. And if you haven't realized yet, the people who come to you as a Pilates professional, they are the people who are choosing to take self-responsibility of their own health. Maybe they have not completely discarded the system of groupthink, and that's okay. But they've taken one major step because, and we know this because Pilates is not the cheapest option for anybody. Pilates costs money because your training costs a lot of money, because you having to stay up to date with all the things costs a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of commitment. So Pilates can be an expense for people, but you know what's even more expensive is the emotional roller coaster of not being in good health and not having responsibility and not being responsible for your own health. So when people come to us for Pilates, they have started at least to make that decision to take control of their own health, as Dr. Joe McCullough so succinctly puts it, taking control of your own health. So I think that this is a super important topic today. That was a huge introduction, wasn't it? Goodness me, I had a little bit of a hissy fit. Just a quick little interruption to say a big thank you to listening to the Pilates Lounge podcast. This podcast is all about sharing our love of movement and Pilates with as many people as possible. So if you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to review us so that we can get the word out there. Also, if you haven't joined us on the Pilates Muse newsletter, it's a bi-weekly newsletter that shares a whole load of information with you. And we also have virtual online education programs. So if you're looking to get inspired and grow even more as a Pilates professional, check us out, www.thepilatesprofessional.com.au. Back to the show. This is a huge topic, and I feel a massive sense of responsibility. This topic of digital detox is actually one of the reasons I began this podcast. You know, these days we get online. Let's take social media, for example. As somebody who does promote my services on social media, I've got to get my message across in no more than 90 seconds. That's pretty much, say on Instagram, I can't put anything up for more than 90 seconds because that's what Instagram permits, unless things have changed by the time you've heard this. But get this, studies show that even though you could put up a video for 90 seconds, within the first 10 seconds, you've lost your community, you've lost your viewer. Nobody is looking at your 90-second video anyway. Instagram in particular, and I don't know TikTok because I'm not in the generation of TikTok, so I can't quote for that, but I know Instagram and Facebook. But on Instagram, so you've got the first 10 seconds to grab your viewer. And within that 10 seconds, they're only emotionally invested for 3 to 5 seconds. So you've actually got 3 to 5 seconds to get your message across. And then your viewer is going to decide whether or not they're going to continue to watch another 5 seconds, say, if it's taken them 5 seconds, they'll continue to watch for another 5. And then if you really grasp them, then they may watch the end of the video, but the likelihood is like less than 3%. So trying to get important information and relevant information and information that is going to really change our clients' lives is pretty much impossible on social media. We actually don't have Our brain does not have the ability to focus because of social media and on social media. We cannot look at the 90-second video because we are looking for the next hit. Now, what happens when we're on social media, and a lot of us probably know this already, but I'm going to go through it anyway because it's important that we understand this as Pilates professionals. What happens when we are scrolling on social media is we get a hit of what's called dopamine. So dopamine is a feel-good hormone. It's a feel-good neuroreceptor. So it gives us this emotion, the feeling of success, of gratification. Who doesn't want that? But what happens, because social media is these small sound bites of information, what happens is when we get that hit of dopamine, so say, and you would get that from watching something that you're enjoying watching, might be the colors or the activity that you're actually watching on the scroll. It's the likes that you're getting, the comments, the positive comments that you're getting, the number of views that you're getting. How, if you've got a professional Instagram page and you're checking out the dashboard, it's seeing how you're growing. They're all dopamine hits. Feels good, doesn't it? When things are happening for us. But they're very small sound bites of these feel good. Every time we get that sound bite or that hit of dopamine, it's like a roller coaster. So that our dopamine, it tops up. So we're at the top of the dopamine hill. But then it's a slippery slope down. We start to dive down into what's called a dopamine trough. And then we need to scroll again, or we need to get another hit. We need to get another like. We need to post something that somebody's going to like. We're looking for another dopamine hit. So then we go up again. And this time we have to climb up a little bit higher to get that dopamine hit. So if you were really honest with yourself and you had a look at how much time you spent on your phone, if you're on Instagram, I'm just using Instagram as an example, but it could be anything. As an Instagram user, it could be Twitter or what's it called, X or Facebook or TikTok, YouTube, any of the above. How long are you spending on that compared to how long you were spending on it 5 years ago? I bet if we really took a graph, then we'd be pretty darn horrified of realizing how much more time we're spending online. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but one of the factors, as far as our emotional being is concerned, is that dopamine trough, so that the slippery slide down has gotten deeper, which means we got to climb higher and harder to get the dopamine hit again. So when one like used to make us feel really good, as our audience grows, that one like isn't good enough anymore. We need 5 likes to feel the same. And then we're spending more time on the screen looking for those likes. And then 5 likes isn't enough. We need 20 likes. We need 50 likes. We get a viral reel and nothing is good enough except for the viral reel. Nothing is going to give us the dopamine hit except for the viral reel. What happens when we're not feeling happy? What's the opposite of happy? Sad, disdain, lack of confidence, despair, feeling sorry for ourselves, hating ourselves, never good enough. That is the opposite of the dopamine hit, is the dopamine trough. Once you get stuck down in that dopamine trough, it's very hard to get out again. And then if you've ever done this with your child, if you've got teenagers out there, I wonder if you've done this before. You go on a family holiday and then you say to your teenager, we're not doing phones this holiday. Well, it is a horrible experience for the entire family. So one of two things is going to happen. You take away the phone, or maybe you've grounded your child. You've taken away the devices. They spiral into this deep sadness, this deep depression. They hate you. They're never going to be your friend again. Their life is over. They can't get in contact with their friends on Snapchat. They can't scroll anymore on TikTok. Their entire world has just collapsed. The world that you have allowed for them to build online has just completely collapsed. Yes, it's your responsibility as a parent if you are one. But then after a couple, and the whole family suffers for that. You're on holidays and your first 2 or 3 days are a living hell when you've got a teenager who is not happy. Nobody enjoys the holiday. But what happens after 2 or 3 days? They start to come out of their shell. They start to sit with you at breakfast and lunch and dinner. They start answering your questions where it had been like trying to get blood out of a stone. They start becoming part of the family again. And you realize that the child that you love so much has actually been screaming out for a digital detox. I'm just using this as an example because I know that this is what happens. So while we did not give my son a phone until he was like 13 years old, he has a phone now. He's out and about with his friends and there's no payphones anywhere. I do need to know where he's at. And it is a hard task trying to manage that screen time. And even with the video games, it's constantly managing things. So today, for example, we're in school holidays, even if you're listening to this in the start of 2025. My son's on school holidays. So we've joined him up with a gym. He's got his rider's bike to the ferry. He catches the ferry over, goes to the gym, goes to a personal trainer. That's like a 4-hour turnaround just to get him off of the game. It would be so much easier for us if we just let him sit at home and play the game. I know it's so much easier. It's easier in the short term, but in the long term, I know that for his long-term mental and emotional health, the best thing I can do is get him away from the screen. But of course, he's got his phone with him. I know that he's still on that. on the ferry, and we restrict everything that he can do on the phone. He's got like the most restricted phone in the world. He's got like 1 hour of Snapchat a day. So he's got to be really thoughtful of when he's going to get online with his friends and stuff. But we can't take everything away from him, I feel like, anyway. But what is my responsibility is that I manage it. And I speak about this for my son, but this is our responsibility for ourselves as well. Because as a business owner, I've got 4 social media handles. I've got the Pilates Lounge podcast, which you're listening to now. I've got the Pilates Professional, which is our teacher training institute. I've got a health retreat, and I've got a Pilates studio. So we've got 4 social media handles that that I manage, and I have help doing some of that, but it's actually really difficult to find somebody to do those things who really understands your voice. So some things that I've learned to do to make all of this work is to batch content. Batch content, spend a couple of hours, maybe 1 day a week, creating those posts. You can save them. So as long as you don't log out on your Instagram, in particular on your phone, as long as you don't log out, then you can save draft things. And even on your Meta business profile on the desktop, you can schedule things. So you can schedule things for an entire week. You don't have to be on there all the time. Definitely get help. I do have a lot of help, but I know that for some things I need to be the one with the voice. And it does take a while to teach other staff members to have the voice that you want for your little business. But you don't want to be the person who is having those highs and lows. What happens when you keep having those highs and lows, the dopamine hit, what happens is our brain ends up with inflammation. So inflammation of the brain is depression, anxiety, poor sleeping habits, any kind of emotional or mental discourse, fogginess, forgetfulness, lack of clarity, lack of motivation. These are all symptoms of inflammation of the brain. So if you have these dopamine highs way too much, and you get that from scrolling, from being on the phone all the time, then you're going to end up with these lows, and that is inflammation. So what does chronic inflammation in the body look like? Chronic inflammation of the brain, we don't know yet as far as the whole social media thing. We are the experiment. I want you to consider that. Your child is the experiment, but we are the experiment. We really don't know what long-term inflammation in the brain from these highs and lows of the dopamine is going to cause. But we do know that long-term inflammation of the brain in general presents itself as cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, hormonal dysregulation, autoimmune conditions, gut dysbiosis and dysregulation, just to throw out a few. So I don't know about you, but I personally consistently and consciously digitally detox as often as I can. So with all of that information, what are some things that you can be doing both for yourself and with your clients to digitally detox? Well, here's some things that I want you to consider. Let your clients know that you are taking time off from the online space. Put a post up about that because it plants the seed for them as well. Hi guys, I know that we post often on social media, but we're going to take a break for a week over Christmas. We hope that you have a wonderful Christmas. Why don't you take a break too? Set the standard, set the scene, be the leader. In our studio, we ask that everybody turn off their phone notifications when they come into the studio. Don't you dare pick up your phone. This is your time for your body, and it's my time with you. Don't put your phone next to you. If you've got one of those silly watch things on that's constantly sending you notifications, constantly taking you into that dopamine high and the dopamine trough, turn off the notification or take the damn phone, take the watch off. I do not understand those watches. I'm sorry. I know that they're a thing, but there's nothing good for your health about those watches. In the studio, let people know that their time is precious. Actually have that conversation with them. You know what? When you come in here, I know that you're super busy and I know that you're taking time out from your day to come and see me. I really appreciate that. And I want to honor that. So this is why we don't have phones in the studio. Every now and then a parent or something or somebody, with a work meeting will be like, I'm on call. I just need to have this next to me. I'm like, cool, no problem. Just for this time, I get that. Can you pop it on silent just so that nobody else can hear it? If people bring children into the studio, please don't let them, say if they've got iPads and whatever, each to their own. This is not judgment. Our parents do it as well. And you know what? I might, if that's what works for you so that you can get your session right now, whatever. But I don't want to hear that thing. Either your child has got headphones on or it's on silent. Nobody else needs to hear any of that. If you have a phone in the studio, make sure, like as the studio owner or the instructor, pop that on silent while you're teaching so that the phone call isn't coming through, because you're also setting the standard like that. It's okay to let people know these things and let them know why. Teach them about the dopamine. Teach them about the long-term inflammation in the brain that can contribute to insidious diseases that we don't even know about yet. Don't do what everyone else is doing. This is one of the biggest messages of this episode. Be the black sheep. Be the bird that is flying in the opposite direction. Swim upstream. Step up. Stand out. Be the one who doesn't do what everybody else is doing. It's really, really difficult when it comes to digital stuff because we've already been told that AI is going to be playing such a huge role in our lives. And I remember being told that all of the online stuff was going to make our life easier. So back in the day, I used to have a big sheet of paper each month and it had all the clients that were coming. It was written in pencil so then I could rub each one out when they cancelled. And I knew my schedule, or I knew the studio schedule on a piece of paper. It felt at the time like it was clunky and difficult. And I remember when booking systems came out and when the online space started happening and we were promised that it was going to make life easier. But now when I look on my phone, how long have you been on your phone today? And some days I'm completely ashamed to tell you that it can be 6 to 8 hours that I've been on the phone. I'm horrified that 6 to 8 hours of my day has been spent looking at a screen to try and get my job done that was taking me 2 to 3 hours when I was writing it down. And not only that, do you think that this whole online space has improved or started to destroy our memory bank? How many people's phone numbers do you remember now? How are you with names? Do you know when your staff birthdays are? Do you know all of your staff's schedule? All of those things seem so much more difficult to remember because we're not writing them down all the time. We're actually relying on the online space. The online space has not made life any simpler for us. It actually has demanded that we do more. It has demanded that we produce more. People's expectations are so much greater now. You can no longer be the dinky little studio with the piece of paper just writing people's names down. People want to be able to get to you 24 hours a day. And if you don't reply to their email within 2 hours, then you've lost them. So automations are great. We love automations. If your booking system has automations, at least people feel like they're getting to you. Make sure that all of your messaging systems are working well. But did you know that you will get dopamine from many other things apart from scrolling on your phone? It's not all dire straits. We get dopamine from exercising. So this is one of the reasons that we let our clients know you don't need your phone right now. You are getting dopamine from exercising. Another way that we get dopamine is by doing things like intermittent fasting, ice bath, saunas, infrared saunas, and those wellness kind of things, which is part of the reason they have become so big. People are actually looking for ways to detox, and they're looking for ways to feel good. What I love about the exercising, infrared saunas, ice bath, intermittent fasting is that you don't get that big hit. What it does do is that you get a longer version of dopamine and a more consistently low version. So you're actually not looking for that big hit. It's like you could think of it like if you ever go to the movies or something and you buy the packet of snakes and you eat the packet of snakes and drink the Coca-Cola, and within the first 10 minutes you're in a coma and you're falling asleep at the cinema because you had that massive sugar high and then you took a big crash. Well, that's what the digital stuff does for our dopamine. It gives us a big high, but then we crash. Compared to if you were to eat a really good, clean meal, a salad, and you get a juice and a little bit of protein, all clean stuff, then you can stay awake for the movie, but still be satisfied. It's exactly the same when we do exercise, when we do Pilates or any kind of stretching or movement in general, then we get this more even tone dopamine effect. And we actually get to then self-regulate. So the whole point of the digital detox is some of us then need to learn how to self-regulate. So rather than get that big sugar hit all the time, that big dopamine hit, let's lower it a little bit, but feel good for longer. And when you feel good for longer, then you're less likely to fall into the trough. So then you're not going to feel the sleeplessness, the depression, anxiety, self-hatred, all of those horrible things. It's much easier to stay feeling good about yourself. And plus all of the other benefits. So this year, my studio, we're actually expanding. I know it seems like a crazy idea when the world seems to be falling apart around us, but hey, I'm not going with I'm not going with the flow of everybody falling apart. I'm all about building a community of people really taking self-responsibility for their health. So we've invested in ice baths and infrared saunas. Now, I'm going to talk about it more next season. This season is much more about the business of things. But, the business of things in Pilates is definitely, absolutely 100% still about your health and wellness and about your clients' health and wellness. But I figure that the whole digital stuff is pretty relevant when it comes to business. But in the next season, I will talk much more about why we are adding the ice baths and infrared saunas. We've already got a HBOT, a hyperbaric oxygen chamber for our clients, because Pilates is just one of the key puzzle pieces. It's not everything. And I think that it's super important. This is why we have these conversations on here, that we understand this and that we really do spend time, and not just time on social media, getting those 90-second videos to start to understand health. Look further afield. This is the whole reason that the podcast was started, because I don't like the way that the information age is going. You're not going to really learn anything on social media. So while scrolling might seem like a good idea, the only reason I'm actually on social media is for you to see me and then look elsewhere for the long form of information. It's why I do full day retreats and workshops and presentations at things like the Pilates conferences. It's why I do the podcast and the newsletter and the blog. Long form is really where you're going to learn, where you're going to grow, expand, improve your knowledge, but also feel better about yourself. This is a big part of why the podcast is here, because we need to go against the grain. We need to not do just what everybody else is doing because everybody else is doing it. And I know that podcasting is also very popular, but this is a very, very specific space just for you to understand how you can actually really make a difference in your community's life, in your client's well-being, by knowing more than just movement or knowing the inside of Pilates. That's really why I started this podcast. Anyway, I feel like I am going on a little bit today, and I'm going to stop it right here. But I do want you to go away understanding two things. You need to digitally detox so that you can regulate your emotions. You can regulate your parasympathetic nervous system, your dopamine. And I want you to make sure that you share this knowledge with your clients, and specifically understanding the inflammation of the brain. Okay. We know that long-term chronic inflammation leads to diseases and is the diseased state of the body. So when you're on social media all the time, your brain is inflamed. Know that. Know that for yourself, for your clients, for your community, for your children. This is the way it is. My friends, thank you so much for joining me today. I wonder how this live recording is going to roll out. Like I said, it's a little bit of an experiment. I'd love to hear from you. I want to know what you want to know, and I will bring it for you, whatever it is. So you know that this season is about business. Next season, we're getting back into health. And next season, I've got very, very educated and intelligent speakers coming on about some really complex health conditions. But let me know what it is that you want to know more about, okay? My name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional, and this is the Pilates Lounge podcast. Thanks for joining me. See you next week.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.